Well, some tough words from New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte. She is blasting Democrats for basically using the military as blackmail. She says the president needs to take a leading role in figuring out how to resolve the defense cuts issue, which would force the Pentagon to cut $500 billion over the next decade.
It makes me sick that some in Washington, particularly, some of the Senate Democrats want to play, and even our president, unfortunately, want to use our military as a bargaining chip.
Tennessee Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn serves as a deputy whip and for the House and is on the House and Energy Commerce Committee. She joins us now. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, ma'am. Good to be with you.
So Senators John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and Kelly Ayotte, who we just heard from, they are all visiting my home state of North Carolina today. It's a swing state, huge military population. They're disagreeing with these military spending cuts. They're also headed to Virginia and Florida. But just sticking to North Carolina alone, a U.S. Senate committee report says that state will lose health screenings, education, senior nutrition, veteran services, and employment help worth more than $100 million. So what is at stake if these cuts go into effect?
Well, first of all, I was in North Carolina a couple of weeks ago, Heather, and they are talking a lot about these proposed cuts and are very concerned about that for the military families. And the way it affects the families is the readiness and the deployment skills. And as you said, these are going to hit every area of our military expenditures. We want to make certain that our men and women in uniform have what they need to redeploy. And I have to tell you, the senator is right when she is blasting the administration for the way that they have approached this and for the lack of willingness to come back to the table. You know, the way we started through this sequestration process and the cuts was to make certain that we reduce what the federal government spends. There's plenty of places that you can reduce federal government discretionary spending, and you can meet the obligation that we need to meet to our men and women in uniform.
Yeah, we're looking at some live pictures of Senator Graham as he speaks there in Florida. As we mentioned, that's going on right now. Now, there is an alternate plan, and I want to get your take on this. Governor Romney, he says that his plan would reverse the military spending cuts made since President Obama came into office, maintaining defense funds, a minimum of 4% of U.S. gross domestic product, also calling for a 67% increase in new naval vessels, an additional 100,000 active troops, also enhanced missile defense investments, basically $2.1 trillion over the next 10 years. That's even more than the military has asked for. So how will we pay for that? Is that feasible?
It is feasible, and one of the things that Governor Romney understands is when these contracts are terminated, then they don't come back. You are back to square one on these, and there are readiness components that need to be kept in that pipeline for our men and women in uniform. Now, Heather, one of the things I think we should do is go eliminate some of the GSA funding, go eliminate these 16,000 IRS agents that are going to be there to implement Obamacare. We do not need to be giving pink slips to our men and women in uniform. The end strength of our troops cannot take what would be necessary to draw down that active fighting force. So for keeping that end strength, keeping the readiness components there, taking care of the families, we need to make certain that we are investing in our military superiority and our military strength.
Yeah, you mentioned some of those alternatives, but to be clear, the military cuts, they were agreed to last summer by Congress along with President Barack Obama after the so-called super committee couldn't come to terms, so the Budget Control Act passed with that automatic cut going into effect.
That's right.
So the thing is, how conceivable is it that we can come to terms and come to an agreement now?
Well, you know, we're going to keep working on it until we do come to an agreement. Because you're right, we were at the table working on a solution, and the Democrats, led by Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, left the table. the president left the table. They need to come back and work on this and make some of these spending reductions in the discretionary spending components in our budget so that you are reducing the areas where they can. I pointed out EPA, GSA, IRS. These are areas, there's HHS, plenty of places that you can begin to reduce the spending. Budgets are about priorities. Expenditures are about priorities. We are spending too much money on programs we do not need or want, and it's money that we don't have.
Also about that fiscal cliff that we are spiraling towards. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman Blackburn. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Heather. Thank you.